Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. I hope you're doing better than I am anyway, because today I am really suffering with my hay fever. So I do apologise if I look bunged up or like I've been crying or if I sound really snuffly. So recently we have had lots of new horror movies drop and I thought it would be fun if I reviewed some of them for you guys. So today we are talking about Dashcam. Dashcam is produced by Blumhouse Productions and is co-written and directed by Rob Savage, who also brought us Host in 2020, which was actually my favourite horror movie of that year. So Host was one of the first movies to be filmed in and set in the panorama and was a huge success on release. It's a found footage movie and was filmed using Zoom, and Rob Savage has not strayed far from form, as Dashcam is also a found footage movie set in and around the panorama. At the start of the pandemic, an indulgent and self-deluded live streaming improv musician abandons LA for London, steals her ex-bandmate's car and makes the wrong decision to give a ride to an elderly woman who is not what she seems. The first thing to talk about with this movie is that while Host was released to pretty much across the board praise and hype, Dashcam has had a different reception. From what I can see online, people either seem to really love this movie or really hate this movie. There's very little middle ground with it. It's also a really controversial movie, and I think that is why so much of the audience has had polarizing opinions, and with that in mind, my review is not going to be for everybody. There will be people that completely disagree with what I have to say about the film. So the reason why Dashcam is so controversial is because of the movie's lead character and lead actress. The character Annie Hardy is actually played by Annie Hardy. She is a real life person and she's known for being an American musician. So all of the improvised songs that she does in the car in the movie, that is her. That is what she is able to do. But she also holds the same views as her movie self does. To an extent. Obviously, everything has been made far more extreme for movie purposes. But in the movie, Annie Hardy is red cap, anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-liberal. And I have seen the question raised online of, is Rob Savage poking fun at people like this? Or is Rob Savage giving people like this a platform? I can completely understand people's anger with this. Annie is a repugnant character and is irritating and difficult to watch at times. Well, unless you fall on the same side as her, I suppose. But I don't think the intent of the movie is to give her a platform. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I don't think Annie is portrayed in a positive light in the film. And I don't think that she comes off very well. I mean, it's one thing watching an unpleasant character that you know is just fictional, but knowing that this actress is actually just a watered down version of this character, it did put me off the movie more. And whether Dashcam is giving people like this a platform or not, it's a shame. It's also unusual to have a movie's lead, a movie protagonist that is so difficult to like, is so difficult to get behind and root for and want to survive. I mean, in the beginning, in the first few minutes, it's actually unclear as to whether or not we are supposed to like her. I mean, she's vulgar, but it kind of comes off more as edgy. But then a few more minutes in, it becomes very clear that as an audience, we are not actually meant to like her. But it's more than just her political views, because honestly, she's just an unpleasant person. She is an arse to everybody that she meets, whether they're strangers or her own close friends. I will say though that there is an odd level of entertainment to be had from Annie, in that her level of energy and chaos actually works well for the movie. Once the horror kicks off, her chaotic personality matches the situation. But the negativity and the political views don't just come from Annie's character, they also come from the people who are commenting on her live stream. And honestly, between Annie and these comments, it's a lot. But again, it's intentionally unpleasant. We are supposed to dislike and be irritated by these people in the comments. They scroll like a normal live stream would, so sometimes they're moving quite quickly, but I did try to read as many of the comments as I could, and some of them are aimed at commenting on the events that are unfolding at the moment, but a lot of them, especially earlier on in the movie, they are attacks on liberals, mask wearers, British people, British food more specifically, vegans, it's a lot. But as with any media form telling a story about a particular event or a particular time, you have to portray both sides of the stories to be accurate. And the truth is, during this time, there were people and are still people like Annie Hardy. And so I suppose a portrayal of that is just reflecting the truth of that time. As far as the rest of the movie goes, as far as the horror goes, I went into Dashcam pretty much completely blind. I didn't read any synopsis. I hadn't seen any of the trailers. The only thing that I knew about it was that it was found footage and that it was directed by Rob Savage, and that alone made me interested to watch it because I had loved Host, his previous movie, so much. Now, as I said, one of the things I did know about it was that it was a found footage movie, and because of this, I almost didn't watch it. Not because I dislike found footage movies. Au contraire, I really love found footage movies when they're done well, a la Paranormal Activity. But the problem is with some found footage movies is that I suffer really badly with motion sickness, to the extent that there are certain movies and video games that make me feel physically sick. But I decided to give it a go and check it out anyway because I'm fine with some found footage. But I will say, after having watched this film, if like me you do suffer with motion sickness or you're just not a fan of shaky cam, then this movie is definitely not going to be a fun time for you. I did feel physically sick by the end of this movie because of how shaky the cam is. Not the movie's fault, I understand that is me, but I'm just forewarning that if, like me, you suffer with motion sickness, then bear that in mind going into this movie. But if you don't suffer with anything like motion sickness, then I will say you will probably have a really fun experience with this movie. One thing that this movie really does have going for it is all of the visuals that are on the screen through the runtime. Of course, you have the events unfolding, but because this is done through a live stream, you also have view counters, likes, comments scrolling up. There's always something going on to keep you occupied and keep you focused on the movie. And I won't get into spoilers, but when the horror does finally get going, it is off the chain. It comes out of nowhere and it feels like it never lets up until the end of the movie. It is and can be intense and a wild ride. There's always something going on and can sometimes be difficult to tell what is actually going on because of the shaky cam and the odd angles of some of the shots. There were times when I had absolutely no idea what was going on. It's certainly not a predictable movie. It also takes on a little bit of a mystery element to it as well as things begin to unfold more as the movie goes on. If anything though, the movie could possibly be accused of having a couple of scenes that are a little bit wash, rinse, repeat. And while it's an intense thrill ride, I wouldn't say that Dashcam is a particularly scary movie in general. Yeah, it's intense and there's a lot going on, but I wouldn't say that I personally was scared throughout it. But there were two scenes that I think that were done really well. There was a really well set up and effective jump scare that got me really good and did take me about half a minute to calm down from afterwards. And there's another scene that is pretty creepy once you realise something that's going on the screen. But unfortunately, as well as this was set up to be creepy, they do just as good a job as then ruining that feeling by making it go on for too long. And while I wasn't scared throughout the movie, I'll tell you what I did feel. Grossed out. I have two words for you guys. Bodily fluids. Oh man, there were some scenes in this film that made me feel quite ill, and that's not just because of the shaky cam. So there's another heads up for you guys. If you don't do particularly well with certain bodily fluids, maybe not for you. I'm not just talking about blood. There is blood, quite a lot of blood. I'm talking other bodily fluids. No. So one thing that I thought about after watching Dashcam was how I'm not 100% sure about the timing of this movie. When Host was released, it was released during the lockdown. We were still in lockdown, we were still deep in Zoom calls and quiz nights, and it did such a good job of capturing and portraying that fear and isolation that a lot of us were feeling at the time. With Dashcam though, we are for the most part out of that time, and a lot of people, the majority of people, are just trying to get back to some sort of normality. So I can't help but wonder if the content of this movie is maybe a little bit too soon for some people, especially considering it's not referencing cute little quiz nights, but it's referencing serious, hard-hitting issues and content. So with all that being said, did I enjoy Dashcam? Well, the answer is no. I did not love this movie at all. And I know that a big part of that is going to be because it wasn't an enjoyable viewing experience for me personally. But even then, you know, with the horror side of it, which seems to be a saving grace for a lot of people, I just didn't get to enjoy that side, either through feeling ill from motion sickness, but also just from not being scared by it. The political side of Dashcam really took me by surprise as well. I really wasn't expecting it. I know that this is a horror movie set during lockdown, and there were and are people like its lead character, but up until this point I just haven't seen that aspect of that time included in a horror movie. I think this movie would have worked without that inclusion. In fact, in my opinion, I think if you removed the entire lockdown side of the story, this movie would have still worked really well. Just have it as an isolated incident. And I think that not only was the political side of it included, but the movie is just so heavy-handed with it. It's not just sprinkled here and there, it is in your face all the time. From Annie herself, to the slogan clothing that she wears, to the comments in the live streaming. Dashcam is a hard one for me to recommend to you guys because honestly, I think it's a 50-50 gamble. You're either going to like it or you're not. And for me personally, I just didn't like it. This was a miss for me, and it's such a shame because I loved Host so much and I was so excited to see what Rob Savage had next for us all. Anyway, what about you guys? Have you seen Dashcam yet? And if you have, which side of the fence do you fall on? Let me know down in the comments below and let's have a chat about it. But as always, don't forget to be considerate. Thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye guys. My window's being washed. Calming tea.